I just clicked it.
Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Hack4Impact UIUC's Info Night this fall. So obviously our recruitment's kicking off and we're so excited to have you guys here tuning in from wherever you all are around the globe, be it in Champaign, Urbana, or in Illinois, California, China, I don't know. So first off, we'd love to introduce ourselves first with the next slide. And my name is Tiffany Duong. I'm one of the co-directors for Hack4Impact. I'm a senior studying information sciences and minoring in CS here at U of I. In the previous roles I've had at Hack4Impact have included product manager and product researcher / designer. And here's my co-director to introduce himself.
Yeah, hey everyone, my name is Yusuf. I'm a junior studying computer science. And my previous roles have been software developer, tech lead, tech director, and now co-director. Super excited to lead this org with Tiffany.
Thanks, Yusuf. Now here's a picture of our full director team. So Shrestha, Angela, and Kendall are probably in the YouTube comments right now, as is fielding whatever questions or comments or concerns you guys may have. But each of us directors focus on a different specialty in order to help our organization run as smoothly as possible. And with that, let's get started on what we do. So our mission here at Hack4Impact is to unite students to build well-engineered, user-centric, and impactful products for social change. So what does that really mean? On our next slide, we can see that we work with a wide variety of different nonprofits, be it in the immigration, environmental, financial literacy, etc. spaces. And we create impact in 3 different ways, I'd say, generally speaking. So traditionally, we work with nonprofits, but our impact goes beyond that. We work with nonprofits who may benefit from having our technological solutions, such as web apps, data science projects, or mobile apps we create, meeting their unmet needs. In addition to that, we also work with and in the local UIUC and Chambana community in ways where our public schools or even our university may benefit from our technical workshops or volunteering in the local community. And then on the third and final way is that our members themselves grow a lot from being in Hack4Impact, both professionally and in their personal endeavors, gaining a community of similarly mission-driven students who want to use their skills for good. So our story overall as Hack4Impact starts in fall 2017 by our co-founders, Alvin Wu and Varun Munjati. So they wanted to be able to use their skills in order to make an impact larger than themselves, essentially. And they didn't necessarily find that in the UIUC community as is back then. So they reached out to a budding national organization called Hack4Impact, and they started a chapter of Hack4Impact here at UIUC. And since then, we have grown largely in size and scope since our humble beginnings, but we still stay connected regardless. And we still have meetups regularly and mentorship calls with our many accomplished alumni. Moving on to our values, you can see that our values are curiosity, intentionality, and empathy. And these are reflected on our website accordingly. So these 3 core values mean different things to different people, but generally speaking, we're looking for and empower people to be curious, be it when they first join the organization as a software developer, product designer, or academy member. It's super important to be curious and always learning or willing to learn new things. And we also host a variety of different technical workshops internally so that members can continue growing within their skills and giving back to the community that is Hack4Impact. In terms of intentionality, we really want to be intentional with our work. So that can include the projects that we choose and the nonprofits that we partner up with, and acknowledging too that we take up a good amount of nonprofits' time and resources in order to work with us. So we want to make sure that whatever products we put out there do good in the world. And as we may all know, technology can do harm. So being really cognizant of that is super important to our mission as well. And then finally, our third value is empathy. We must always have empathy for each other and each other's circumstances internally, and empower each other to be more inclusive and equitable. But then also we must have empathy for the different nonprofits we work with and their affected users and communities. And now moving on to Yusuf, who will be talking about our organization structure as a whole.
Yeah, thanks, Tiffany. So at Hack4Impact, there are two primary semester team structures. The first is the project team. So these teams, we typically have 4 to 5 of them a semester, and they're working directly with nonprofits towards delivering some product. These teams consist of a tech lead, a product manager, about 4 to 5 software developers, and a product designer. What you'll notice is these teams mimic teams that may exist in the industry in terms of their structure, and that's a very intentional thing to do as we work towards delivering beautiful and complete products. The next type of team is the academy team. So academy teams are sort of meant to grow our younger members and get them comfortable in terms of software development, growing in the community. Typically, these are members that already have that interest, but don't necessarily have that technical background. So that's headed by 2 academy leads, and the rest of the members are our wonderful academy members. Sorry, slides are a bit slow. Okay, so a few past partners. Some of our past partners, as Tiffany touched on earlier, span all sorts of different industries. They have reaches sometimes in the Middle East, sometimes just international in general, and sometimes they're focused on local communities. So for example, the YMCA New American Welcome Center right here in Champaign that we've partnered with before. But yeah, one of the most beautiful things about Hack4Impact is that you have this opportunity to work with such a wide breadth of different partners. And every semester, each partner comes to us with a unique challenge, a unique problem. And of course, it is a unique partner. So that entails all sorts of different things. But in general, it's always a fun and exciting opportunity to work with a partner and help them grow and help them fulfill some technical solution that they need. Okay, so now touching on some examples of our work. So primarily our work spans 3 categories. We have our web apps, our mobile apps, and data science projects. This is just historically what we've done. With that said, we are always open and happy to explore new areas. And we actually have a team dedicated to just looking and exploring new areas that we can work on in the future. But yeah, in general, I would say the strong majority of projects that we work on are web apps. And just within web apps, there's just such a wide breadth of different types of web apps that we can be working on and so forth. So for example, just right here, you can see we have on the top a map-based web app that we built for our nonprofit partner Falling Fruit. And then at the bottom, a resource hub that we built for the YMCA New American Welcome Center. And I think one of the things that sets Hack4Impact apart a little bit, or something that I'm really proud that we're doing recently, is we're really focusing on longer partnerships with our nonprofits. So every semester we'll work towards some common goal, and we'll continue working until we're satisfied, and more importantly, the nonprofit is fully satisfied with the project that we're working on. And that leads us to deliver more impactful change and deliver bigger and sometimes more ambitious projects. So these are 4 nonprofits that we'll be working with this semester, and unique among them is all of them are continuing from last semester. So you have Southside Weekly, which is a news organization, Mentee, Falling Fruit, 3DP for me, just our collection of amazing partners that want to continue with us. Moving on to mentorship. This is one of the key pillars in Hack4Impact, and something that's really important to me, and I know important to a lot of our members. But basically at Hack4Impact, we believe that we all have this responsibility to sort of grow and mentor others in terms of if we have a particular experience or set of skills, it's our responsibility to share those with the rest of the members. So yeah, in general at Hack4Impact, you'll find all sorts of informal methods of mentorship with your peers through some categories that I'll touch on in just a bit, but also more explicit forms of mentorship where each of you joining as a new member for our freshmen and sophomores particularly will have a dedicated mentor who's typically an alum or a very senior member who has a lot of industry experience and can really teach you about some of the things that they've learned over their somewhat longer careers. But yeah, I think at the bottom, it summarizes it very well. It's an amazing opportunity to grow as a programmer, designer, whatever your role may be, as a leader, or as a person. Yeah, this is a continuation on the previous slide, but touching more on specific examples. So, like I mentioned, the culture is that there's a strong willingness to share knowledge, and that is shown through the transparency in the way we structure our communication. So we use these open Slack channels where members can share about all sorts of things. You can share about, your sneaker interests, your food interests, whatever it may be, and sort of teach others about whatever interesting things you know about. And then there are also more dedicated times for this. So for example, during our org all hands, we'll have tech talks and lightning talks. Tech talks touching on some technical aspect that you'd like to present and share with the org, and lightning talks touching on something more interesting, like how not to dress like a CS major, or I don't know, like all sorts of topics, like random topics, like Dance Dance Revolution. Just two examples that come to mind. And then leads, of course, just being leads, have a lot of mentorship responsibility for their younger members. And there are a couple additional, notes there, including Hack4Impact Academy, which relies very heavily on mentorship. So that's a good segue into Academy. Danielle, if you want to take it from here.
Thank you, Yusuf. Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle, and I'm a senior studying computer science. And in the past, in Hack4Impact, I've been a software developer, but this semester, I'm going to be the Academy lead. So what is Academy? If you're anything like me, when I was a freshman, I heard about Hack4Impact during Quad Day, or maybe you heard about it in your classes or in the mass mail that was sent this morning, and you're like, oh, Hack4Impact sounds really cool, except I don't think I have enough software development experience to be on a project team yet. Well, that's okay, and that's where Academy comes in. So Academy is specifically a team designed for underclassmen who have little to no web development experience, and you get put on a team with a bunch of other people who also don't have a lot of web development experience. And for the first semester that you're on Hack4Impact, you'll go through this web development boot camp, and then the first half, you'll learn everything you need to know to be successful as a web developer, and then the second half, you'll kind of collaborate with your fellow members to build a semester project. So the advantages of this is you can really build solid fundamentals, and you can also collaborate with fellow members and get the experience of creating a product from scratch. And then in the spring, after you complete one semester of this, you will be able to join a development team and work with a client. So the timeline of Academy in the fall is as follows. So when you join around mid-September, that's when you're going to start the boot camp aspect of it. So you're going to start with very basic topics like version control and shell and how to use the terminal and stuff like that, basically talking about advanced ways to use GitHub, and then move into more the web dev side, which is HTML, CSS, and then you'll really go into the MERN template, which is the tech stack that we use for the majority of our projects, which is MongoDB, JavaScript, React, and Express. And again, if you don't know what any of these are, that's okay. I didn't know any of them when I was a freshman either. That's the point of Academy. And then right as you start learning about the MERN template, we're going to start working on a project that you'll be collaborating with your teammates on for the whole rest of the semester. And then in January, when second semester starts, you'll be placed on a dev team. So some past Academy projects include Carpool, which is like carpool. This is created by our fall 2019 cohort, which was our first cohort, and it allows UIUC students to easily find people to carpool with and split gas costs. And then another project that we had last fall is called Roomble, which allows UIUC students to match with potential roommates. And so also, there are many past Academy members who are currently in lead positions. So if you're not sure if you can contribute to Hack4Impact without much web dev knowledge, this is completely not true, because it doesn't really matter where you start out, because many people started out in Academy, but now today are serving as very, very helpful and successful leads. So for example, we have Matt, who is currently a tech lead, Sahi, who has been the product research lead and product manager, and Angela, who has been a product manager and is now the community director. And yeah, so that's just an overview. Here are some cute pictures. You can see the first semester we've had Academy. There are many pictures from fall 2019 when we were still in person. And then last year, obviously we were online, but we still managed to have a great team and everyone had a lot of fun and learned a lot. And then this semester, this fall, that's me and Ashwin, who's going to be the other Academy lead. So we hope to have you. And now I'm going to hand it off to Asahi, who, like I mentioned before, was an Academy member and is now a product manager. And she's going to talk about some of her experiences in Hack4Impact and in the industry.
Thanks for the intro, Danielle. I'm Sahi, as Danielle mentioned, and I'm a junior in computer science, and I'm currently a product manager, specifically for the Southside Weekly project that we've been working on. This was my team this last semester, and I'm super excited to continue to work with some of them again this semester. So let's jump into a little bit about my real world experience, project experience. I got my first real world project experience through Hack4Impact when I was a dev on the Kids Save Ocean team. What do I mean by real world experience? The web app that I was building with fellow teammates would go on to be used by someone, and in our case specifically, a nonprofit and their end users. Getting this experience was really instrumental for me as a first step, and definitely not only helped me find both software and product management internships at Echelon Technology and Relativity respectively, but the initial experience and then variety of experiences that I got from Hack4Impact also helped me during the course of those internships. And so here you can see my progression through Hack4Impact over the course of 4 semesters. I came in as an Academy member during Academy's pilot semester, fall of my freshman year in 2019. And then that spring, I was a software dev on Kids Save Ocean, which is when I was also on the product research and external committees. On product research that semester, I ended up sourcing and scoping one of our fall 2020 projects with nonprofit Collective Liberty. And then in fall 2020, I was a product research lead, and I worked with my committee to find and scope the Falling Fruit and Southside Weekly projects, which we're continuing to work on today. And this past spring, I became the product manager for the Southside Weekly project, and that's a role that I'll be continuing in this semester. So this is all a summary of my journey in Hack4Impact so far, but it's definitely not the end. There are still even more roles that I can continue to explore, which is something that I find pretty cool and exciting. I came into the org as a freshman, and now I'm a junior, and there's still even more room to grow. I also want to emphasize how in Hack4Impact, members can literally have a different role every semester if they want to. There's a lot of room to try different things outside of the work that you do on your dev teams, which has been a really fruitful experience for me. If I didn't join the product research team in spring 2020, I may not have necessarily explored product elsewhere, and I wouldn't have necessarily realized that it's a space that I really enjoy working in. And so now I'm going to talk more about how my product experience at Hack4Impact translated directly into my product management internship this past summer at Relativity, and specifically working on one of their products called Trace. I had 2 really broad and their biggest problems handed off to me, and no research or scoping had been done, and my manager had 12 other projects on his plate. So it was really on me to take these very abstract problems around error reporting and reconciliation for a whole data flow, as well as anomaly detection, and run with those big problems for 2 different projects. I wouldn't have even known where to start if I hadn't had the product experience from Hack4Impact under my belt. And because of that, I knew that I needed to understand the problem, identify open questions, do research on what's already out there, talk to internal and external stakeholders, which included subject matter experts and engineers, and a lot more other things. And this essentially boiled down to understanding the problem, identifying what was in scope versus out of scope, brainstorming solutions, and getting feedback. I had this process that I was familiar with from the product work that I did both on product research and in product management in Hack4Impact. I was able to carry it with me, apply and refine, and really come out with a deeper understanding of my sense of style as a PM and where my interests lie. And in terms of what's next, I now have different paths and combinations of roles in industry that I'm keeping in mind and I'm open to exploring moving forward. I do know that my experience on Southside Weekly this semester, this fall, and what I choose to focus on in Hack4Impact as a PM will largely influence what my next steps and journey look like. And on that note, that wraps up my segment, and I'm going to hand things off to Tiffany, who will be speaking more about product and design within Hack4Impact.
Okay, thank you so much, Sahi. So she touched a little bit about software engineering and products, but wanted to talk a little bit more about our project sourcing process and design. So beyond software engineering itself, we strongly value connecting our product creation to grander social challenges. We believe that as engineers and designers, we can use our technical skills to innovate social solutions and to marry these together with nonprofits that need the most of our help in order to guarantee the product's success. So we do this through intensive project sourcing, product management, and user research. And by more deeply understanding the challenges presented by our nonprofits and gathering as many insights as we can co-create solutions with the users by our side and build with them rather than for them. Many times, nonprofits may have a general understanding of their own challenges and issues, but talking one-on-one with experts, users, and stakeholders helps us as developers and designers to build the most usable and necessary products through a deeper understanding of the challenges and their various considerations. So here I'm highlighting a project I did with the YMCA New American Welcome Center back in the day, back when I had different hair. But back then we were working with the local NOC to connect immigrants to local resources and service providers. So by delving deeper into user research and interviewing people who would potentially be using our products, be it immigrants themselves or the general landscape of immigration in the Chambana area, we could then gather inspiration, ideate, and implement solutions accordingly using the human-centered design process. And then on the next, this slide, we can see that these insights translate directly into the products we create. So we can see how something like the lack of trust that an immigrant may have to a foreign web product may then make it so that we need to reference affiliated trustworthy organizations and testimonials for them to really know that it's something that's trustworthy for them to use. So these considerations were valuable to product feature prioritization and specification, and thus making our products more successful. And then in terms of design, we can see on this slide how a lot of times design may start off as something like different pathways a user may go through on a different application, and that we're just ideating of what would a user need to see. And then from there going into low fidelity and mid fidelity mockups, which we can see on the next page, such as this here, where you can see some different concepts being mapped out, but it's not enough per se then for a software developer to take and put in pixel by pixel. But then finally, through testing it with users and figuring out what works with the nonprofit, we can end up with a final product that both we and our nonprofit are satisfied with, and give something like this, which created on something like Sketch or Figma, then to our software developers to develop and implement. And then moving on from design at Hack4Impact, I'm going to talk a little bit about community. So community at Hack4Impact is definitely something that is very strong here. So humans obviously are social creatures, and we want our members to have fun and be happy, be it within the organization or outside of it. And even though we do have a hefty time commitment, a good amount of it is dedicated towards community, be it spending time with other members at a fun night, playing board games, Valorant, tennis, whatever interest that you have. We have different channels within our community for you to explore those interests. And even built into the work that we do weekly, we'll dedicate time to do fun things like painting or learning about different public interest technology, nonprofits, or just playing games. And then we can see that this makes a huge difference to our members as well. So even over this past summer, we had tons of different meetups between different members from all across the United States, be it Seattle to LA to Boston, New York City, and of course, the general Illinois area. And for that reason, we can tell that the community at Hack4Impact matters to these people, and people love to stay connected, even when they've long graduated. And now you may be curious, how do you join Hack4Impact? So let's move on to Lamin and Anisha, our recruitment chairs, who will be presenting about that exactly.
Awesome. Thanks for passing off, Tiffany. So nice to meet you guys. Now onto the fun part of Hack4Impact recruitment, which you guys have all been waiting for. So I'm Lam.
I'm Anisha.
Cool. And I am a senior in CES, and I've been here in Hack4Impact for 6 semesters now, started off as a software developer and most recently as a product manager for YMCA.
Yeah, so I'm also a senior. I'm majoring in mechanical engineering, but I have a minor in art. I've been a product designer. I've been involved in recruitment for the past 4 semesters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. And here we're excited to tell you about recruitment. Cool. So recruitment has 3 main roles that we are recruiting for this semester. The first role is software developer. This is the bread and butter of Hack4Impact, the core part of what makes our organization successful in all of these projects. So as a software developer, you are brainstorming features, you're designing technical architecture with leads, and you might be developing and really ideating your own specific features of products for our projects this semester. And depending on the scope of the products, you could be working on web applications, data science products, or even mobile applications. The second role after that is Academy member. As Danielle said, we recognize that there are a lot of passionate, talented freshmen on campus who may not have had the opportunities, same opportunities as other people. So we have Academy of roles specifically designed for you to take a semester to learn the essential skills you need to succeed in Hack4Impact as a software developer. You'll learn through the course of 1 semester, take on a project and learn our tech stack, such as React, Express, MongoDB, and learn what it needs to be successful. And the next semester, take on a full-fledged product with a client as a real software developer. And then finally, we have our product designer role. This role is one of the most pivotal roles in Hack4Impact and essential to every single project. You are designing the UI UX of the product. You're defining the product user experience with the project manager, doing things like leading user research, doing usability testing, designing mockups and user flows to make our products not only successful, but also amazing for the user experience. So if you are curious which role should apply to, you should apply to the one you're most interested in. For a software developer versus Academy, we really encourage Academy members if you are taking CS 124, or if you are an ECE major taking up to ECE 220, or if you're any major really interested in social impact, social good, and interested and willing to learn CS, we highly recommend you apply to Academy. But if you're unsure which bucket you land in, apply to software developer or Academy, and we'll bucket you accordingly. If you want more information about all of these roles, feel free to click the link below right there and to learn all about our recruitment process. Cool. Now let's talk about a week in the life of a Hack4Impact member. So Hack4Impact member, we don't just do cool CS stuff. We also do a lot of social stuff on the side. So aside from that, we do boba runs, we do ice skating, we do picnics on the quad. We do a lot of fun stuff outside of coding. And the time expectation that you could expect will be around 8 to 10 hours a week. So every Sunday we have an all hands, which is an organization-wide meetup. This is where we can catch up with each other, check in on project updates, and do fun community stuff. To make sure our projects are meeting their deadlines, we also have typically 2 dev nights a week. This is typically 2 hours, but more depending how much fun you're having with your teammates. And that'll take up around 4 to 5 hours a week. Then outside of that, this is completely up to you, depending on how much you want to get involved. But we host at least 2 to 3 community events every single week with really fun stuff that could range from going to boba runs with friends, doing things like restaurant meetups, or even in the last photo, going to Kickapoo to go kayaking with the entire organization. Super fun stuff. Hack4Impact really meshes the best of both worlds. We really value a thriving community as something that is essential to a defining college experience. And we love to see the best of both worlds in Hack4Impact, both social and technical. Cool. And finally, some last reminders for you guys to make sure that you guys are on your game. Screenshot this if you need to. Write this down. Make sure you have these dates down because we really want you to apply to Hack4Impact. We really value diverse experiences and opportunities applying to Hack4Impact. So our applications, again, are due this Sunday at midnight, August 29th. Write this date down. Put it in your reminder to-do list. Make sure you remember this date. After the applications, we'll have invitation only to first round interviews. That will be September 1st and 2nd. On Wednesday and Thursday, that will be behavioral interviews, and Anisha will tell you more about how to succeed in these interviews on the next slide. And then after those, there will be 2 more rounds of interviews. social round interviews where we can gauge how you work in a team, and then finally the technical final round interviews where we can gauge your technical aptitude and qualifications to succeed in Hack4Impact. One important distinction to make is that final round interviews will be different for software developers in Academy. That will be on September 7th and 8th. But if you're applying for the product designer role, that will be on September 11th. Again, all this information is available in the link below. Really simple, h4i.app/Lee. You'll find out all of our recruitment information on there. And make sure you guys screenshot this, make sure you guys have the date, because we really want you to apply. So don't miss out. And now I'll pass it off to Anisha to talk about how you can succeed in these interviews.
So I know the last slide seems really intimidating with that many interviews, but we're not just going to throw these interviews out to you without having you be prepared. So we want you to succeed. We want you to do as well as possible, because the better you succeed, the better we are able to understand you and your experiences. So the first and most important thing for any interview, whether it be just Hack4Impact or any professional interview, is to learn the STAR method. So what is the STAR method? The STAR method is a structured manner of responding to a behavioral-based interview question by discussing the specific situation, task, action, and result of the situation you're describing. So let's give an example. Say Lam is interviewing and he's like, give me a time where you handled a conflict. First, what you want to do is describe the situation. So I was in CS 125. That's a situation. Then the task is I was having to do this final project. Then you want to describe your action. So as the action is you are supposed to be the project leader and you're supposed to complete this project within 5 weeks. And then you're going to describe the result, which is I finished this assignment or this project within 5 weeks with a completion rate of 90%. And it was really successful and it helped this app to do something amazing and good for the community. So that's what you want to do. You want to follow this format for basically any interview question given. So with the first round, this is mainly behavioral. And so what this means is that these are the types of questions you're going to want to use the STAR method for. And behavioral questions, they are pretty typical in most interviews. So you can Google these. You can Google classic behavioral questions mentioned in interviews and you can practice them. You can come up with situations and these tasks beforehand. So for the first round, a couple of tips are to be confident in your answers. When you're confident, your communication skills increase so much more. You're able to speak clearly, and the interviewers like me and Lam will be able to hear you a lot better. Another thing is to take a moment to think before you're speaking. Say you're given a question that you didn't get to prepare beforehand. You don't have to jump in and then ramble right away. Take a moment. Find a situation that you think is going to be important or applicable, and then start on it. You can take that small moment to just think and gather your thoughts. And another tip is to be concise, which is using the STAR method. You don't want to start off at one point, ramble on, and then end up at another point. Using the STAR method is really going to make your answers concise and on point, and make sure you're answering the question that the interviewers are asking you. Now, for the social round, this is not very much an interview as it is to gauge how you work in a team. Hack4Impact is very dependent on teamwork. We want to enjoy the people around. We want to be able to work well in teams together, because the better you work on a team, the better your product's going to end up being. So with this, pretend you're in a group project. There's not always going to be a teacher watching you basically, but you want to perform well. You want to show that you're participating and being an active participant. So with this, you're going to want to be collaborative. Make sure you're bringing in other people. Make sure you're participating. Let's say there's someone else interviewing for Hack4Impact and you don't see them actively participating. Make sure you bring them in as well. Another part is to actively participate. You want to see you engage in our event and our activities. Another part is to be respectful of your peers. Hack4Impact prides itself on how respectful and amazing we are as people to the community. And so we want to make sure we represent that well. And the final tip is to be yourself. We don't want you acting like somebody else. You are amazing as who you are. We just want to see it for ourselves. So be you and be confident. And for the technical round.
Yep. So for the technical round, for software developers and Academy members, the biggest mistake that people make in these interviews is just they solve the problem, give us the answer, and then leave the interview. That's not what we want. We want to hear how you think. We want to hear how you step through the problem, break it down, and actually solve it with your thought process aloud, because that's what we look for in a great team member. Don't think of this as giving you a problem and asking you to solve it, but for us to gauge how you program and work in a team and be able to solve problems collectively with another person. So communicate your thought process aloud. Ask clarifying questions. Some of the problems we give you and some of the problems in the real world when you work in a team might not have a correct answer. There might be a lot of edge cases to think about. So ask questions, communicate aloud, and most of all, practice, practice, practice. You can look up Classic technical round interviews, you can do lead code problems with your friends. Object-oriented problems will be the focus of our technical round. So practice those with friends and make sure you know how to do them. And then for product designer interviews?
Basically the same tips as well. So we want to know how you came up with your design. So this means making sure you document how your thought process was, why you came up to the design that you are. So when it comes to that, ask clarifying questions if you don't have it, and really communicate how you came up with the designs you have.
Cool. And without further ado, we'll pass it off to open up to questions. Pass that back to Yusuf.
Yep, thanks, Simon and Nisha. So now we'll jump to questions. So, feel free right now to drop your questions in that YouTube live stream. We'll be looking at those questions from there. And to the rest of the Hack4Impact team that's monitoring those, if we do miss a question, please make sure that you guys can loop back and answer that in case you've missed it and moved on. Okay, so Tiffany, do you want me to stop sharing and then pull up the questions, or do you want to pull them up on your end and ask them?
Yeah, I can pull them up on my end. So some of these questions have already been answered by some members at Hack4Impact that you see, either on their personal accounts or on the H4I YouTube account, but I will reiterate ones that I think are relevant. So one of the questions is, can juniors be an Academy member? And the answer is that Academy's role is more geared towards freshmen and sophomores, especially if you've completed CS 124 or 125, or are in or have taken CS 225s, you should apply for the software developer role. That being said, we do understand that there are circumstances such as with the EC major as a whole, where EC 220 covers a lot of lower level programming and not necessarily object-oriented programming, which is what our technical interview for software developers cover. For that reason, it really depends on the applicant themselves. And a lot of times we may sort you guys based off of your technical experience as displayed on your resume and application. Another question is, how many Academy members are going to be recruited this semester? Yusuf, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. So typically our Academy team is around 4 members, I'd say like 4 to 5. It really does depend though on in general, like how the applicant field is looking, how many people we think are applying that are a good fit for the Academy role and are a good fit for us as an org. But definitely I'd say if you're interested in the Academy role, don't worry too much about how many people are taking, just apply and put your best self forward, and we'll review from there. So thank you. Just make sure you do that.
Mm-hmm. And then you can read more about specific role descriptions at h4i.app/apply or /ly. They're kind of different versions of similar information. And another question is, I'm not a CS major, but I've taken a couple of intro stats coding classes. Would I still be able to do Academy, or should I apply to product design? So to answer that question, we would want to figure out the interests of the applicant in general towards either of those. So coding versus product design are very different at Hack4Impact. So we would want people who are in between both to be more sure of whether they're interested in going down the software development route or going down the product designer route. But that being said, it depends on the specific courses that are being taken. If they cover object-oriented programming, then we would suggest one to take the software developer route in terms of applications. However, if they cover more of different types of programming, then perhaps Academy would be a better fit. And in terms of our organization as a whole, there's several questions about if we are largely undergrads or grad students too. So we are mostly undergrads as is, however, grad students can apply as well. And okay. Another question, how do software developers get put onto projects and teams? Yusuf, if you'd like to answer that.
Yeah, sure. So basically, as a software developer and you join the org, the way it works is we'll look at first your background experiences and sort of assess like, how are you as like an individual? What are your interests? For example, if you have like strong education interests and we have an education nonprofit, maybe that's a really good fit. If you have and also, of course, we try to balance our teams technically. So we'll look at your technical experience as well. But yeah, in general, the way it works is after you join, we'll handle like the project matching process. But, as you saw in that earlier slide, we already know who our nonprofit partners are. So then we'll look at the cohort as a whole and sort of place you on a on a project team. That said, you are able to indicate your preferences. And I do think that most people tend to get their top preferences. So definitely like you'll have a lot of freedom in that sense, and you'll be able to work on a project that really means a lot to you. But in general, regardless which project you're working on, you'll be making an amazing social impact and you'll be working with an amazing team. So that's what ultimately matters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then some other questions that I'm seeing here are relating to this info session as a whole. So this info night, as you may see, is being live streamed onto YouTube, and it will continue to be hosted on YouTube, and you can watch this at any point of time, also via the same link. So h4i.app/info-night. It will always forever be on YouTube. And we will also put this link onto our social media and website. So you can access this as well as the presentation we presented as well. Then we have some questions about the Academy and software developer interviews. So candidates are curious about what languages are being covered on the software developer interview, as well as what the Academy interview looks like. So Yusuf, if you'd like to answer that.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, with regards, I'll touch on the software developer interview first. So, we've already given a lot of hints beforehand on the content. It will be an object-oriented programming question. So you should keep that in mind when thinking about what languages you want to use during the interview, but we don't have a restriction necessarily on what language you want to use, right? So, just keep that in mind. You want to use the language that is you're comfortable object-oriented programming with, so that you're not like a little bit stuck. With that said, we do focus a lot also on your thought process and like sort of how you go about the problem. So just another thing to keep in mind. For the Academy interview, I know that the structure varies dramatically from the software developer interview. So we don't only test like your technical experience, because we trust that with Academy, you're coming to us with a lot of interest in social good, maybe not as much technical experience, and we want to help you grow in that area. So instead, we'll typically focus on sort of how you're able to explore and navigate on your own and learn skills, like sort of learn through the interview, ask questions and learn about some problem on your own. And then we'll sort of assess that way, like how you're learning it and, through that interview. So essentially what I would say is don't worry too much if you're an Academy member on nuances of language or algorithms and data structures, that sort of thing.
Okay, and then we have some questions about in-person versus Zoom. So for our recruitment process itself, all of our first round and technical final round interviews will be conducted on Zoom. And then our social round will have the choice of being in person or on Zoom based on one's availability. And then for the course of the organization as a whole, so we are moving towards having more in-person events as cautioned by the COVID pandemic. So we'll keep that in mind closely. However, if you're on campus versus off campus, we would highly encourage you to apply in either format. And some other questions we have is how much coding is needed for the product design position? So typically product designers at Hack4Impact do not have programming experience. However, it widely varies actually. So we have some that are very proficient at the entire MERN stack and could essentially be software developers if they wanted to be, and as well as product designers who come from more traditional art and design background who join Hack4Impact. Either one is perfectly acceptable. What we want to see is a strong design sense and product sense, as well as a passion for Hack4Impact and our mission overall. Some other questions. Are you looking for people with a lot of experience in either web dev or data science, or is some experience in both also acceptable? And Yusuf, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, so actually, I would say a majority of our applicants, I think, I'll have to double check, but I think a majority of our applicants come into Hack4Impact without any sort of, our admitted applicants actually come into Hack4Impact without any sort of web dev or data science background necessarily. So typically they'll have like programming experience, they'll understand obviously object-oriented programming, they'll have taken those core CS classes, might have an internship or two under their belt, but we don't necessarily look for that web dev experience. We trust that as a good software engineer, as a good developer, you're able to pick up those skills just having that background, right? So on your teams, you'll, if you don't have as much background, like I said, we balance our teams technically, you'll be placed on a team where others on the team have that background and they'll be able to sort of help you catch up. and at the same time, it'll be a fun learning experience for you. And I came into Hack4Impact without a lot of experience, and then thankfully I felt like I picked up a lot of web dev experience over the years, eventually transitioned to be a tech lead. So definitely don't worry about what background you have that is niche to those areas.
And then one of the questions is, how should people new to CS approach the GitHub, website, and LinkedIn portion of the application? So as you see on the application itself, those questions are optional. So if they're pertinent to you and you have those, feel free to put them up. If not, then leave them blank. However, of those three choices, so GitHub, website, and LinkedIn, I would highly recommend creating a LinkedIn in general. If you haven't created one already, you can put a list of your different positions and roles, be it in software development or not. So if you used to be a tutor or you volunteered in high school, anything of that sort, put that on your LinkedIn. It's really great to see on our ends there. And in terms of GitHub and website, we are not asking you to create a GitHub or website if you don't have one already. However, if you do have a set of projects, side projects from your work outside of classes or even inside of classes, just in general, as a software developer, it's really great to have a place for you to show off the work that you've been doing. So if you have those projects, put them on GitHub in a website. If not, it's totally fine. Also, it's not required for either of those anyways.
Yeah, listen, we don't necessarily, like, I don't know who's asking this question, but if you are coming from like a younger background, we do understand, and we do understand that like members who come from those who are newer members to the university, younger students in general, don't necessarily have like fleshed out LinkedIns with multiple internships. We don't expect that from you. And so, yeah, just like Tiffany said, don't be intimidated by that at all. And please put your foot forward and still go through with the application. We do have career workshops, like actually within Hack4Impact, professional development workshops, where we'll help you even if you don't have that background, sort of develop your resume and your LinkedIn and so forth. So definitely apply.
And then one of the questions we see here is, where do we apply? So we'll stress this once again. H4I.app/apply is our application link. Bookmark it, whatever. It's also on all of our social media, and applications are due at midnight this upcoming Sunday. You also have the chance to meet us in person if you have any last minute questions, you just want to talk to us in real life, at eNight this Sunday from 3 to 6 p.m. on Engineering Quad. eNight, for those unfamiliar, is basically an engineering version of Quad Day, where a bunch of engineering RSOs will be out there to talk about their different work. And some other questions we may have relates to the technical interview quite a bit. Okay, so is the social interview with other applicants, or is it a solo thing with current members? Yusuf would like to answer that.
Actually, Lemon and Nisha, do you guys want to take that question about the social run, since you guys worked on recruitment a lot? So it's a question about if the social round is with other members, right, Tiffany, like together, or if it's like more individual?
Yes.
Yeah, so social run actually is going to be with all the applicants and all of our Hack4Impact members at once. So it won't be individual. You will be randomly grouped up with different applicants with a mix of different Hack4Impact members. So it's kind of small group, but you're not going to be alone.
The main purpose of it is we'll put you on a teamwork-based activity, and we'll try to gauge your teamwork from there. So you'll be working on your teamwork abilities by collaborating with others.
Okay, and then one of the questions is only 4 to 5 Academy members. Is that how many people we're looking for? And the question is, or sorry, the answer to that question is not necessarily. We're likely going to actually go for more than 4 to 5 Academy members, especially because we are in person and can likely support that. However, it definitely depends, and we definitely want to still facilitate a good community with our constituents. And I think that, okay. So another question, if we have a good amount of software experience other than web dev specifically, would the software developer role still be a good fit? I'm familiar with machine learning and computer vision, for example.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I was answering a different question.
Oh, no worries. If we have a good amount of software experience other than web dev specifically, would the software developer role still be a good fit? I'm familiar with machine learning and computer vision, for example.
Oh yeah, 100%. So like I said before, we don't look at your like what specific niche area of computer science your background is in. Instead, we look at holistically like how much CS experience do you have in general. So as someone with a lot of machine learning or computer vision experience, that to me that speaks to someone who is like someone who has like learned a lot of the CS core concepts and obviously can apply them through their work. And so in Hack for Impact, we would expect that you'd be able to still work on a project team and be able to like pick up that experience. And kind of weaving that in with another answer to a question, when someone asks like how we balance the project teams, we do look at when like after you've been admitted, when we're looking to balance the project teams, then we'll look at your web dev experience and figure out, okay, how can we make the project team that has like a web dev experience that is well suited to deliver a project. And as a member, you will, regardless of your prior web dev experience, you'll be able to like learn and catch up with the rest of the team if you don't have as much. And the more senior members on your team will be able to help you out there.
And then another question. This is just about acceptance rates for different roles. As said earlier, we don't publish our recruitment numbers, but we would highly encourage you to apply if you are interested in Hack for Impact. Even if you don't necessarily have the XYZ background for whatever role that you're applying to, please apply and we'll try to figure out a fit, especially based off of your passion, which is so very important to us. And I think that is all of the different questions that we had for the most part. Either they were answered within the comment section or through this live stream in general. So feel free to reach out if there are any questions that haven't been answered by us or that we mistakenly didn't answer during this live stream. So you can reach out at our email, which is uiuc@hack4impact.org, or on any of our social media. So we have very active Facebook and Instagram. Hack for Impact UIUC is the username on Instagram. And yeah, without further ado, thank you so much for coming out and listening to us talk about our organization. We really hope that you apply. From all of us here on the call, as well as everyone in Hack for Impact, be it currently or in the past, we really appreciate you guys coming out.
Thanks all.
Thanks, guys.